The truth about Dylan's past had been buried for so long that she had almost convinced herself she no longer needed it. But on the bold and the beautiful, secrets rarely stay hidden forever, especially when they have the power to change a family overnight. For Dylan, the question of who her biological father really was had followed her quietly through every major moment of her life. She had learned how to smile without answers, how to move forward without knowing where she truly came from, and how to build a future with Will Spencer while pretending the missing pieces of her past did not matter. But deep inside, they mattered more than she wanted anyone to know. And now, after Finn stumbled across information he never expected to find, Dylan was about to receive an answer that would leave her trembling, crying, and questioning everything she thought she understood about herself. It began at the hospital, where Finn had been trying to finish an ordinary day of work. He was reviewing medical records when something caught his attention. At first, it seemed like nothing more than an inconsistency buried in an old file connected to Dylan's family history. Finn was not searching for a secret. He certainly was not trying to interfere in Dylan's personal life. But the more he examined the information, the more uncomfortable he became. Dates did not line up. Names had been altered. A piece of medical history appeared to have been intentionally withheld. Finn leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen, realizing this was no simple clerical error. Someone had worked very hard to keep part of Dylan's history hidden. Finn knew enough about complicated families to understand how dangerous buried truths could become. His own life had been shaped by shocking revelations about his parents, his biological connections, and Sheila Carter. Because of that, he felt an immediate sympathy for Dylan. He also understood that once a truth like this was uncovered, there was no easy way to put it back in the box. After carefully checking what he legally and ethically could, Finn discovered evidence connecting Dylan's biological history to a man whose identity had been deliberately removed from the story she had been told growing up. Finn's expression changed as he read the final information. He whispered, "This can't be right." But it was. The discovery was not simply that Dylan's father had been absent. The shocking part was that his identity connected Dylan to a world much closer to her present life than she ever imagined. The secret was not buried because nobody knew the truth. It had been buried because someone feared what would happen if Dylan ever discovered it. Finn immediately understood that Dylan deserved to hear this carefully, not through gossip and certainly not through a careless conversation at Forrester Creations. He contacted her and asked if she could meet him privately. Dylan could hear the seriousness in his voice. "Finn, what's going on?" "I'd rather explain it in person." That answer instantly made her nervous. "Is this about Will?"
No.
"Will is fine." "Then what is it?" Finn hesitated before saying, "It's about you, Dylan, and your family." The words stayed in her mind during the entire trip to see him. When Dylan entered Finn's office, she immediately noticed the folder sitting on his desk. Finn stood instead of remaining behind the desk, which only made the situation feel more serious. "You're scaring me," Dylan admitted. "I'm sorry. That's not what I want." "Then tell me why I'm here." Finn looked at her carefully. "Before I do, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to tell you could change the way you see parts of your past." Dylan's eyes moved toward the folder. "What did you find?" Finn explained that information connected to her biological history had surfaced, and that there were inconsistencies surrounding the identity of her father. Dylan initially tried to laugh it off. "My father? Finn, I don't even know why we're talking about this." "Because I think you were deliberately kept from knowing the truth." Her smile disappeared. "What does that mean?" "It means the story you were given may not have been the complete story." Dylan folded her arms defensively. People always say things like that right before they destroy somebody's life. Finn understood the fear behind her anger. "I'm not trying to destroy anything." "Then why are you digging into my family?" "I wasn't. I came across information that raised questions. Once I realized what it could mean, I wanted to make sure I understood it before saying anything to you." Dylan stared at him. "Do you know who my biological father is?" Finn did not answer immediately. That silence told her everything. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You do." Her breathing became uneven. She stepped away from him, pressing a hand against her mouth. "Dylan, just tell me. I think we should sit down." No, her voice broke. I've spent my whole life with people deciding what I'm ready to know. Don't do that to me too. Just tell me his name. Finn slowly reached for the folder. The evidence pointed to a man Dylan had heard about before, someone whose history crossed paths with families she now knew through Will and the Forresters. But Finn wanted Dylan to understand that the revelation was about more than a recognizable name. There were circumstances surrounding her birth that suggested her father may never have been given the opportunity to know she existed. Dylan's eyes filled with tears. You're saying he didn't abandon me? That's what the evidence suggests. That sentence affected her more deeply than Finn expected. For years, Dylan had privately imagined a father who had known about her and simply decided she was not worth staying for. Even when she told people she did not care, that belief had quietly shaped her. It made her suspicious when people promised they would stay. It made her afraid of depending too much on Will. It even influenced the way she reacted whenever Electra questioned whether Dylan truly belonged in Will's world. Now Finn was telling her the foundation of that pain might have been a lie. Who is he? Dylan whispered again. Finn opened the folder and turned the documentation toward her. Then he finally revealed the identity. Dylan froze. For several seconds, she did not speak at all. Her eyes moved from the document to Finn and back again, searching for some sign that she had misunderstood. Her hands began shaking.
No.
Dylan.
No.
That's impossible. I thought the same thing when I first saw the connection. You're wrong. I verified what I could. You have to be wrong. She pushed the folder away and stood abruptly. Tears were already running down her face. This is insane. My entire life, nobody told me this. Nobody thought I deserved to know. Finn stood as well. I'm sorry. Don't say you're sorry. Tell me why. I don't know the full reason yet. Dylan shook her head violently. There has to be a reason. People don't hide something like this for nothing. That's exactly what concerns me. She looked at the evidence again, and suddenly her anger disappeared beneath something much more painful. Did he know about me? Finn's expression softened. Based on what I found, I don't believe he did. That was the moment Dylan broke. She covered her mouth with both hands as a sob escaped. Finn instinctively stepped toward her but stopped, allowing her to decide whether she wanted comfort. He didn't know? It doesn't appear that way. All these years. Dylan lowered herself into the chair. All these years I thought somebody knew I existed and didn't want me. Finn crouched slightly so he could speak to her at eye level. You may have been carrying anger toward someone who never had the chance to explain himself. Dylan wiped at her tears. That doesn't make it better.
No.
It makes it worse. Finn understood exactly what she meant. If her father had intentionally abandoned her, at least Dylan knew where to place her anger. But if someone had kept them apart, then years had been stolen from both of them. Who did this? Dylan asked. That's what we still need to find out. Meanwhile, Will had begun wondering why Dylan had suddenly disappeared after receiving Finn's call. He tried texting her, but there was no response. When he eventually learned she was at the hospital, concern took over. Will arrived expecting a medical emergency and found Dylan sitting in Finn's office with tears streaming down her face.
Dylan.
She turned toward him. The moment she saw Will, whatever strength she had left disappeared. Will rushed toward her. What happened? Are you hurt? She shook her head.
No.
Then what is it? Dylan tried to speak, but the words would not come. Finn quietly said, she learned something difficult about her family. Will looked from Finn to the documents. What kind of difficult? Dylan finally managed to whisper. Finn found my biological father. Will stared at her. What? I know who he is. Will immediately sat beside her and took her hand. Okay, I'm here. Those simple words caused Dylan to cry even harder. You don't understand. Then tell me. He didn't leave me, Will. Will's expression changed. What do you mean? He never knew about me. Will looked toward Finn, who gave a small confirming nod. Dylan continued through tears. Somebody kept me from him. Somebody decided he wasn't supposed to know I existed. Will wrapped his arms around her. Dylan held onto him tightly, overwhelmed by grief for a relationship she had never been allowed to have. But even in that emotional moment, another question was already forming. If Dylan's father never knew about her, who had hidden the truth, and why? Elsewhere, the consequences of Finn's discovery were already beginning to spread. Katie sensed something was wrong when Will canceled plans and refused to explain where he was. Katie had always been protective of her son, particularly where Dylan was concerned. She had questioned Dylan's history before and wondered whether there were secrets surrounding her connection to the Spencer family. Now Will's sudden secrecy made those concerns return. When Katie finally confronted him later, Will initially refused to reveal Dylan's private information. "She's dealing with something personal." Katie frowned. "Personal enough that you dropped everything and rushed to the hospital?" "She needed me." "Is she sick?"
No.
"Then what happened?" Will hesitated. "Mom, this isn't my secret to tell." Katie immediately understood the situation was bigger than he was admitting. At the same time, Dylan remained with Finn, trying to process what she had learned. She asked to see every piece of evidence. Finn explained each part carefully. The dates, the medical history, the hidden connection. The information that suggested her father had been deliberately kept away. Finally, Dylan asked the question Finn knew was coming. "Can this be confirmed?" "Yes."
How?
"A DNA test would give us the strongest answer." Dylan stared at him. "And if it confirms everything, then you'll know." She looked down.
No, Finn.
"Then I'll have 1,000 more questions." He could not argue with that. Dylan's biggest fear was no longer whether the man was truly her father. It was what would happen after confirmation. Would he want to meet her? Would he believe her? Would he resent her arrival? Would she suddenly become a threat to another family? Will tried to reassure her. "You don't have to decide anything today." "But what if he has a family? Then we deal with that when we get there." "What if they hate me?" "Why would they?" "Because that's what happens when somebody shows up with a DNA test and says, 'Surprise, I'm part of your family.'" Will squeezed her hand. "You're not showing up to take anything from anyone." Dylan looked at him. "You really believe that?" "Yes." She gave him a sad smile. "You're Spencer. You know better than anyone what happens when a secret child appears." Will almost smiled at the irony, but the pain in Dylan's face stopped him. "You're right. Which is why I also know the truth eventually matters more than pretending it doesn't exist." Dylan leaned against him. Finn watched them quietly. He was relieved Dylan had someone beside her, but he remained troubled by the deliberate nature of the hidden information. Someone had not merely failed to tell Dylan the truth. Someone appeared to have actively protected the secret. That meant Finn's discovery could put pressure on a person who had spent years making sure Dylan never learned her father's identity. Later, when Dylan was alone with Will, she admitted what frightened her most. "What if finding him changes me?" Will looked confused.
How?
"I've spent so long thinking I knew who I was. Maybe I didn't know everything about my past, but at least it was mine. Now suddenly, there's this whole other part of me. It was always part of you. I know, but now it has a name." Will gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "You don't have to become somebody different because you learned where you came from." Dylan looked into his eyes. "And if my father doesn't want me?" Will paused before answering. "Then he's the one who loses something." Dylan began crying again, but this time she allowed Will to hold her without fighting the emotion. The following day, Finn arranged the next step toward confirmation. Dylan arrived visibly nervous. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined meeting her father. Sometimes he embraced her. Sometimes he stared at her like a stranger. Sometimes he accused her of lying. Finn reminded her that the test was only about establishing biological truth. But Dylan knew biology was the easy part. The emotional consequences were far more complicated. As Finn prepared everything, Dylan stared at the folder containing the identity that had changed her life in a single afternoon. "I want to meet him," she suddenly said. Will looked at her. "You're sure?"
No.
That answer surprised him. Dylan wiped away another tear. "I'm not sure about anything, but I spent too many years not knowing. I don't want to spend another day wondering what would happen if I looked him in the eyes." Finn nodded. "Then we do this carefully." But before they could move forward, Finn received an unexpected phone call. His expression immediately became serious. Dylan noticed. "What is it?" Finn ended the call and slowly turned toward her. "There's a problem." Her face went pale. "What kind of problem?" "Someone knows we're looking into your father." Will stood.
Who?
Finn hesitated. "I don't know yet." Dylan stared at the folder. Suddenly, the secret no longer felt like something buried in the past. It felt alive. Someone was watching. Someone was worried. And someone clearly did not want Dylan to uncover the entire truth. The mystery deepened when part of the information Finn had accessed became unavailable. A record that had been visible the previous day could no longer be located. Finn knew medical records did not simply disappear without explanation. He immediately began questioning whether the same person who had hidden Dylan's father years ago was now trying to bury the evidence again. Dylan was furious.
No.
"I'm done being scared." Dylan, Will warned.
No, Will.
"Whoever did this already took years from me. They don't get another minute." For the first time since Finn revealed the truth, Dylan's sadness transformed into determination. "I'm taking the DNA test." Finn nodded. "And when it comes back?" Dylan took a long breath. "I'm going to find my father." The eventual confirmation arrived with exactly the result Finn expected. The biological connection was real. Dylan stared at the DNA report while tears filled her eyes. There it was in black and white. The answer she had spent her entire life without. Will stood beside her. Finn remained across the room, giving her space. Dylan touched the paper with trembling fingers. "So it's true." "Yes," Finn said gently. She laughed through her tears, but there was no happiness in the sound yet. It was disbelief, grief, relief, and anger colliding at once. "He's my father." Finn nodded. Dylan pressed the report against her chest and closed her eyes. For years she had wondered why she had not been enough for her father to stay. Now she knew the heartbreaking truth. He had never been given the choice. And neither had she. Will wrapped his arms around her as Dylan finally allowed herself to cry without restraint. But this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Because Dylan now had proof of who her biological father was, and the next step would be confronting the man himself. What would happen when he learned that he had a daughter he never knew existed? Would he welcome Dylan into his life, or would the revelation create a new family war? And most importantly, who had worked so hard to keep father and daughter apart? Finn had revealed the identity, but he had also opened a door to a much darker mystery. Someone had lied. Someone had hidden the truth. Someone had stolen years from Dylan and her father. And now that Dylan knew exactly who she was looking for, that person could no longer depend on silence to protect the secret. Dylan wiped away her tears and looked at Finn with a determination he had not seen before. "I want the whole truth." "You deserve it," Finn replied. "No more half answers. No more people deciding what I'm allowed to know." Will moved beside her. "You won't do this alone." Dylan looked down at the DNA report one final time. Yesterday, the name on that page had been a mystery.